67 years old, and I could still leave men half my age behind. The morning run kept me sharp, kept that firefighter's discipline intact, even 5 years into retirement. I pushed open the front door and froze. Bass was hammering through the walls. The living room looked like a storm had blown straight through it. Welcome to Dad's Revenge. I'm glad you found your way here. If stories like this one speak to you, stick around. There are more coming, and the best way to keep up is to follow along so you never miss one. Before we get into it, I want to ask, what are you up to right now? While you listen, driving somewhere, taking care of things around the house, winding down for the evening. Drop it in the comments. I always enjoy knowing. One more thing, some details in this story have been shaped for the telling, and any resemblance to specific real people or events is purely coincidental. What matters is the truth at the heart of it. Empty bottles ran the length of the coffee table. Pizza boxes slumped on the floor. Some stranger's jacket was thrown over my reading chair. A man I didn't know was sprawled across the couch, mouth hanging open, one arm dangling toward the carpet. Another body was folded into the recliner, shoes still on. My house, my home for 23 years. I moved through the wreckage, sweat going cold on my skin, and made my way toward the bedroom. Something stopped me before I got there. The master bedroom door was standing wide open. It was never open anymore. Then I saw them. Garbage bags. 5 black trash bags lined against the hallway wall like they were waiting for pickup day. I already knew what was inside. My clothes pressed against the plastic, my shoes, my books, everything I'd kept in that room for 2 decades, stuffed into trash bags like I was being cleared out of my own life. I stopped at the threshold, didn't step in, just looked. Trina's makeup had taken over the dresser where my wallet used to sit. Cody's work boots were parked beside the bed. My bed, the one Delia and I had picked out together back in 2002. Their clothes owned the closet. The framed photo of Delia that always lived on my nightstand was gone. An overflowing ashtray full of cigarette butts had taken its place. Dad, you're back. Trina appeared in the doorway behind me, wearing one of Cody's oversized shirts, hair tangled. She didn't look caught off guard, didn't look ashamed. She looked like she'd rehearsed for this conversation and had every answer ready. Trina, Cody, we need to talk about what happened here last night. This is our home now, old man. Cody's voice cut through mine like a blade. He stepped up beside Trina, bare-chested, mechanic's arms folded across his chest. This house will be ours soon anyway, so get used to your new room. Your glory days are over. The words just sat there in the air, not a threat, a declaration. Dad, you should be grateful we're even here looking after you. Trina's voice had that sugary quality she pulled out whenever she wanted something. At your age, you need us more than we need you. 3 years. 3 years since I'd unlocked that door and told them they could stay until they found their footing. 3 years watching my home slowly become theirs. My rules turned into suggestions. My life got smaller and smaller until it fit inside a storage room at the back of the house. I looked at my daughter, really looked, and searched for the girl who used to ride on my shoulders at the 4th of July parade, who sobbed the day I taught her to ride a bike, who squeezed me so tight at her high school graduation, I thought something might give. She wasn't there. I see. 2 words. That was all I offered. But something locked into place behind those 2 words. The haze I'd been drifting through for 3 years burned off. I'd been holding on, waiting for them to remember who I was, what I'd sacrificed, that a father is owed some measure of respect. I'd been waiting for gratitude, for the daughter I raised to come back to herself. I was finished waiting. That's right, stay quiet. Cody's grin showed teeth. It's better for everyone when you remember your place. I crouched down, picked up one of the trash bags. My clothes shifted inside the plastic, heavy and bunched. I straightened, felt the weight in my hands, and walked past them down the hall, past the bathroom to the small storage room beside the laundry area. The 9x10 space with one window, a cot, and a single dresser they had decided was sufficient for me. I set the bag down, closed the door. My hands didn't shake. My breathing stayed level. 32 years of fighting fires had drilled into me how to stay composed when everything around you is burning. You assess, you plan, you act. A photograph hung on the wall above the cot. Me in my firefighter gear, 20 years younger, standing in front of Station 14. The San Antonio Fire Department patch visible on my shoulder. Captain Virgil Dunbar, the man who'd pulled 4 people from a burning apartment complex on Culebra Road. The man who'd brought up 24 rookies. The man who had never once backed down from a fight. I sat on the edge of the cot and studied that younger face. The house had gone quiet. The stranger on the couch was probably still out cold. Trina and Cody had likely gone back to sleep, satisfied they'd put me in my place, sure the old man had finally learned to accept it. They were wrong. I sat as morning light came through that small window. As the Texas heat began stacking up for another brutal day, as the sounds of my occupied house seeped through the thin walls, I sat there and I planned. The next morning, I was out the door before they stirred. Alarm at 5:30. I dressed in the dark khaki slacks, a button-down I'd ironed the night before, my good leather belt, not my usual shorts and t-shirt. This called for a different kind of uniform. The storage room door swung open without a sound. I'd figured out which boards creaked and which path stayed silent. Through the dim hallway past their closed bedroom door, out to the driveway where my truck sat in the pre-dawn gray. The engine caught quietly. I backed out, dropped it into drive, and pointed toward the freeway before the sun came up. San Antonio traffic builds fast. By the time I merged onto I-10, the eastbound lanes had already started their morning grind toward downtown. I kept the radio off. Needed to think. Needed to stay locked in on what came next. I'd spent the night before on my phone searching. Tenant eviction, San Antonio, Texas. Removing family members from home. Property rights, Bezar County. The screen's blue glow had lit up the storage room past midnight. I'd jotted notes on the back of an old envelope, scratched out dead ends, circled what looked promising. One name kept showing up in the reviews. Nadine Corbett, family law attorney, fair prices, straight talk office on Commerce Street downtown. I'd called at 7 that morning. The receptionist said Miss Corbett had a cancellation at 9 o'clock if I could get there. I could get there. The parking garage off Commerce smelled like oil and exhaust. I rode the elevator to the 7th floor, found Suite 508, pushed through a glass door into a waiting room with navy chairs and magazines nobody read. Mr. Dunbar. A woman in her early 50s came out from a back office. Gray blazer, sharp eyes, handshake that meant business. I'm Nadine Corbett. Come on back. Her office had windows looking down over the street, a desk arranged like a military operation diplomas from Trinity University on the wall. She pointed to the chair across from her and settled in with a legal pad. Tell me what's happening. I laid it all out. 3 years ago, financial trouble. A temporary arrangement, my daughter and her husband. No lease, no written agreement, just a father trying to help family. Now they'd taken the place over, threw parties, damaged property, pushed me out of my own bedroom, refused to leave when I said it was time. Nadine took notes and didn't interrupt. When I finished, she set her pen down and looked straight at me. Mr. Dunbar, I understand this is your daughter, but legally she and her husband are tenants now. You'll need to file formal eviction papers through the Justice Court. It's not a pleasant process, but it's the only legal route. And after the eviction is processed, I leaned forward. If they refuse to leave or try to force their way back in, something shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe, like she'd fielded this question before and understood exactly what it meant. Then they've moved into criminal territory, breaking and entering, criminal trespass, potentially assault if they threaten you. At that point, it's a police matter, not civil court. Texas takes property rights seriously. The pieces settled into place. Civil eviction first. Criminal consequences after. 2 separate systems, 2 separate tracks, one leading into the other. How long does the eviction process take? She walked me through it step by step. 30-day notice delivered by the sheriff. Court hearing if they contest it. Writ of possession if they still won't move. 6 weeks at minimum from start to finish. Sometimes 8 depending on the court schedules and how much they cooperate. I know that feels like a long time, but the law requires it. She slid a packet of forms across the desk. Fill these out. File them at the Justice Court on Dolorosa. They'll arrange for the sheriff to deliver notice. After that, the clock is running. I took the papers, asked about costs, filing, fees court, costs sheriff's service, wrote down the numbers. Asked what happened if they destroyed property during the eviction period, asked what evidence I should be collecting, asked the questions a firefighter asks when he's sizing up a situation. What are the variables? What can go sideways? What's the backup plan? Nadine answered everything. When I got up to leave an hour later, I was holding a folder full of forms and a clear map of the battlefield. Mr. Dunbar? She walked me to the door. Document everything, take photos, keep records. If this goes bad, you'll need evidence. I will. I shook her hand one more time and made my way back through the waiting room down the elevator into the concrete shadows of the parking garage. Sat in my truck with that folder resting on my lap. The eviction papers looked up at me. Blank lines waiting for dates, addresses, names, my daughter's name. I turned the key and pulled out. The hardware store sat right on the way home. I swung into the lot, went inside, and tracked down what I was after in aisle 9. A compact fireproof safe with a combination lock. Black steel, heavy enough to matter, light enough to move. $74 plus tax. Back in the truck, I set it on the passenger seat and kept heading west. On I-10, back toward Helotes, back toward the house that no longer felt like mine, even though my name was still on the deed. The afternoon sun beat down hard as I turned into the driveway. Cody's truck sat in its usual spot, crusted with dried mud from whatever job site he'd been working. Music bled through the walls. Their music, their volume, their world. I grabbed the safe, tucked it under my arm, and walked to the front door. Inside, somebody laughed. Glass clinked. The television roared with some game show. I turned the knob and stepped inside through the still cluttered living room, down the hallway into the storage room. Closed the door. Set the safe on the floor next to the dresser. Inside it, I placed the deed to my house, my birth certificate, Delia's death certificate, my firefighter pension and documents, the eviction papers Nadine had given me. Everything that mattered, everything that proved who I was and what I owned. I spun the combination lock and tested it. Secure. Through the thin walls, Cody's voice broke into another laugh. Trina said something I couldn't catch. Their life went on unbothered, but the clock had started moving. They just didn't realize it yet. I settled onto the cot and let myself have one quiet smile. The days ground by. I left before sunrise and came home well after dark. Ate breakfast at a diner on loop 1604, grabbed dinner from whatever drive-thru was still open. The storage room became a cell I occupied between shifts of staying out of their way. 10 days after I'd locked my documents in the safe, I was sitting on the cot when the knock came. Not their knock, not the sound of someone coming home, or a delivery driver dropping a package at the door. This one was official, 3 solid raps carrying authority. I stayed put and listened. Cody's footsteps crossed the living room. The door swung open. Bexar County Sheriff's Office. The voice came right through the walls, formal and clear. I have legal documents for Cody Kelso and Trina Dunbar Kelso. This is official notice of eviction proceedings. Silence, then the sound of paper rustling. The door closed. More silence. I could picture Cody standing there, staring at those papers, trying to work out what he was reading. Then the explosion. Virgil. Cody's voice shook the house. Footsteps hammered down the hallway. My door flew open. You filed eviction papers on your own family. You're throwing us out on the street. He filled the doorway. The sheriff's notice was crumpled in his fist. Trina materialized behind him, eyes wide, reading the papers over his shoulder. I rose, slowly put my back near the wall to give myself space, kept my hands loose at my sides. This is real. Trina's voice pitched high. Dad, you're evicting us? Your own daughter? This is my house. My voice came out flat. No shake, no hesitation. I gave you 3 years. You took advantage. You have 30 days to find an apartment. Cody moved a step into the room. 30 days. We're not going anywhere. This is our home now. It's my house, I said again. The deed has my name, just mine. He shoved the small table beside the door. It scraped across the floor and hit the wall. The move was meant to intimidate, to show what he could do, to remind me he was bigger, younger, stronger. I didn't flinch. Dad, please. Trina pushed past Cody and suddenly tears were running down her face. Real ones, maybe. Or maybe just a skill she'd refined over years of getting her way. I'm your daughter. You really want me out on the street. After everything we've done for you, we look after you. You're adults with jobs. I kept my eyes on Cody, not Trina. Watched his hands, watched his breathing. Figure it out. You don't have the nerve to see this through. Cody stepped closer. Some paper doesn't change a thing. This house is ours. You know it. We know it. You won't actually put us out. You don't have it in you, old man. I held his stare and said nothing. Let the silence carry the weight. They left, eventually took the papers with them. I could hear them in the master bedroom, voices climbing and falling, arguing over what came next. I sat back down on the cot and waited. The Cold War kicked off that same afternoon. They stopped talking to me. Directly left notes instead scattered around the house where I'd find them. Thanks for nothing. Family means nothing to you. You'll regret this. Cody made phone calls loud enough to travel through the walls. Nah, man. He's not going through with it. All talk. He filed some papers to shake us up, but he won't finish it. He's weak. Trina left dishes in the sink, let trash pile up blasted music at midnight. Small cruelties designed to chip away at my resolve. I documented everything. Took photos of the damage they had stacked up. Scratches gouged into the hardwood floors, holes punched in the drywall, a broken window blind in the guest room. Pulled my text messages from them into a file. Started a journal, dated entries factual observations. Cody home, drunk 2, a.m. broke glass in kitchen. Trina invited 6 people over party until 3 a.m. On a Tuesday every morning, I was gone before they stirred. Every evening I came back after they had settled in. I ate in my truck sometimes sitting in a grocery store parking lot, watching the sun drop behind the strip malls and chain restaurants lining the streets. The house had filled with tension the way humidity builds before a storm. Heavy pressing, waiting for something to give. But I wasn't giving. I was counting days. 28 days after the sheriff's visit, I sat in the storage room, checking my phone calendar. The court hearing was set for Monday, August 10th, 2 days out. I opened the fireproof safe and pulled out my folder. The property deed sat on top, crisp and official, my name in black ink. Beneath it, the photos I'd taken, the journal, with dated entries, saved text messages, the sheriff's proof of service for the eviction notice. I went through it, methodically made sure everything was where it needed to be. Every piece of evidence told the same story. This was my property. They'd refused to leave. I'd followed every legal step. Cody's voice carried from the living room, loud and performative on his phone. Nah, man. He's not going through with it. All talk. He doesn't have the spine. We're not going anywhere. I closed the folder, slid it back into the safe, spun the lock. 2 days. The morning of the hearing, I put on the same khakis and button-down I'd worn to Nadine's office. Left the house at 7:30. Drove through morning traffic into downtown San Antonio. Found parking in the same garage on Commerce Street. Bexar County Justice Court occupied a utilitarian building that had absorbed thousands of cases just like mine. Fluorescent lights hummed above. Worn wooden benches lined the hallway outside the courtroom. People sat waiting, some with lawyers, some alone, all wearing looks that ran from bored to terrified. I checked in with the clerk, took a seat, opened my folder, and read through the documents one final time. I'd long since memorized every word. Around me, cases were called. Evictions, mostly landlords against tenants, property owners, working to reclaim what was legally theirs. Some defendants showed up and argued. Some never appeared at all. Dunbar versus Kelso. The bailiff's voice cut through the murmur. I stood, walked through the wooden gate to the front of the courtroom. The judge sat elevated behind his bench, gray-haired reading glasses perched low as he peered over them at me. Mr. Dunbar. He glanced at the empty chairs where the defendants should have been. Where are Cody Kelso and Trina Dunbar? Kelso. They chose not to appear, Your Honor. His eyebrows lifted slightly. That small expression said everything. That was a mistake on their part. You are the plaintiff and property owner. He extended his hand and the bailiff collected my documents and passed them up to the bench. Yes, Your Honor. I'm listed as the sole owner of the property. The defendants moved in 3 years ago on a temporary basis. No lease was ever signed. They were served by Bexar County Sheriff on July 20th with proper 30-day notice. The judge worked through the property deed, examined the sheriff's proof of service, looked over the photos I'd submitted, showing the condition of the house. The defendants didn't appear or file any response to the eviction notice. No, Your Honor. He made notes on a form, signed something, and handed the papers back to the bailiff. Start to finish, the whole hearing ran under 10 minutes. The judge barely glanced up from his bench. Defendant didn't show, didn't contest, nothing to deliberate. Writ of possession granted, effective, immediately executable within 5 days. A stamp hit the paper. Next case. The bailiff passed me the signed writ across the aisle. I creased it, flat slipped it into my folder, and walked out without looking back. Outside, I stopped on the courthouse steps and drew that document into the Texas sunlight. Stood there reading every line. Bexar County's official seal. The judge's signature. My name, my address. Legal authority in black ink to reclaim what was mine. From downtown, I drove out to a locksmith in Alamo Heights, a squat freestanding building, hand-lettered sign, weathered from decades on the same corner. An older man was working behind the counter, surrounded by racks of key blanks and loose lock cylinders. "Help you?" I laid the writ on the counter between us. Court-ordered eviction. Every lock on my property needs replacing. Friday morning, if that's workable. He lifted the document, read it over, set it down with a nod. Wise call. "Friday's open. I'll come out, pull everything front-back garage. You're looking at an hour and a half, maybe less. Go with deadbolts. Friday works. They tend to clear out around 9:30 for their coffee run." I held his gaze steady. "Think you can land there at 10 o'clock? Once they're off the property, I want it handled fast." He read the situation without me spelling it out. A man who'd seen this exact scenario more than once. 10 o'clock it is. "I'll show up with everything required. Your part is making sure the house is empty when I arrive." We shook on it. He penciled my address into his book. Friday, August 15th, 10 a.m. I headed home through the building afternoon heat. Cody's truck was already in the driveway. Bass from their music pushed through the walls. Both of them inside, probably raising a glass to what they figured was my defeat proof I'd folded under pressure. I gave the front door a wide berth, cut around to the side entrance, feeding straight into the storage room, latched it behind me, and settled onto the cot. Pulled out the writ and went through it again. Word by word, this time, letting the weight of it sink in. 5 days. That was the window the judge had given me. I fired off a text to the locksmith. Confirmed for Friday, 10 a.m. His response came back immediately. "See you then." Phone down on the cot beside me. Through the wall, Cody's laugh cracked at something. The music rolled into a new track. They partied on, completely unaware. 4 more days of wearing the mask of a beaten man. 4 more days of haunting my own house like I had no claim to it. 4 more days of feeding their certainty that they'd broken me. Then Friday would arrive, and reality would introduce itself. Those 4 days between the hearing and the execution moved like wet concrete. Cody and Trina threw themselves into celebrating what they'd decided was my surrender. The noise level climbed. The mess spread. Insults came louder, thrown through walls without any effort to aim. I didn't alter my pattern. Out at first light, home after dark, nothing said to either of them. That writ was locked inside my fireproof safe, and they were completely in the dark. Thursday evening came, August 14th. I sat with the storage room door open a crack, tracking the sounds of them getting themselves together. "Let's go. It's wing night at Callahan's." Trina's voice reached me from down the hall. Cody's keys rattled. Finally. I need a drink after dealing with his nonsense. Thursday night at the bar on Bandera Road, their standing appointment never missed as reliable as a train schedule. I held position by the small window, one eye at the gap in the curtain. Cody's truck nosed out of the driveway, brake lights painting the dusk red. The engine grumbled away down the block, then nothing. I checked the time, 7:45, a full evening ahead of them. It never went any other way. I went room to room, fast phone out camera, running, documenting everything the way I found it. Bottles clustered on the coffee table, burn marks ground into the carpet, a window blind, hanging broken from its bracket. All of it captured with time stamps. Back in the storage room, I verified what mattered most was still secure. Birth certificate, property deed. Delia's photo. The writ everything critical, sealed inside the fireproof safe. Quick text to the locksmith. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., confirmed. 3 locks front back garage. I'll be ready." He came right back. "See you then. Bringing high security deadbolts." I squared my paperwork into sequence. Writ on top, property deed beneath it, sheriff's proof of service, then my incident log. The full picture ready if tomorrow required it. Something about that empty house felt different. Quieter, yes, but also somehow less fouled, as if their absence scrubbed something out of the air. At 10:30, the engine growl announced their return, loud as always. Cody had never gotten around to fixing that broken muffler. I took up a spot in the entryway, writ in hand. Waited. The front door swung inward. Trina came through first, unsteady, laughing at something from outside. Cody came in behind her, one hand braced against the door frame. Both of them carrying the smell of beer and wing sauce. They registered me and stopped cold. The eviction order took effect at noon today. I raised the document so the judge's signature was visible. This is the writ of possession from Bazar County Justice Court. Collect your things and vacate the property tonight. Trina looked at me for a long moment without speaking. Then she started laughing. Are you serious right now? She tilted with it, still grinning. Dad, you've completely lost your mind. We're not going anywhere. This is ridiculous. Cody closed the distance between us, pushed into my space until I could feel the heat off him and catch the alcohol on every breath. Try to evict us, old man. His voice went low and flat. You don't have the spine. That paper doesn't mean anything. We live here. This is our house now. I held my ground, didn't move, didn't blink, eyes straight into his. Then let me be clear. Come tomorrow morning, every lock on this house gets replaced. You force entry after that, you've committed breaking and entering. Criminal offense. Law enforcement will be making a visit. Cody's laugh had an edge to it. You're bluffing. This isn't something you can do. I turned my back on him and walked the hall toward the storage room. Even pace, no hurry, no retreat. We'll break down whatever locks you put on. Cody's voice came after me. This isn't over. You hear me? This isn't over. I stepped through the storage room door and pulled it shut. The bolt lock I'd put in 2 weeks prior seated home with a sharp, solid click. Cody's fist hit the door. The wood shook in the frame, but didn't give. You think a lock stops me? I'll kick this door in. I settled onto the cot and let his voice become just another sound in the walls. The pounding wore itself out. His footsteps moved off. The two of them kept at it in the main rooms, angry and slurred, chasing the same circle of rage and disbelief. Sometime around midnight, the house went still. I stretched out on the cot in my clothes, ran through my phone one last time, punched in a 6 a.m. alarm. Tomorrow would follow their pattern, exactly sleeping in, dragging themselves to the kitchen out the door by 9:30 for their Friday routine breakfast tacos and coffee at the spot on loop 1604. Clockwork. I'd be positioned. I plugged in the phone, let my eyes close. Sleep wasn't really on offer. My head kept cycling running sequences, stress testing the plan, accounting for what could go sideways. But I wasn't after sleep. I was after readiness. Everything was in position. All that remained was watching them walk into it. The alarm pulled me out at 6. Not that I'd been deeply under. Mostly I'd been lying there, tracking the window, as it went from black to gray, listening to the structure settle around me after midnight. Around 8:30, the house woke up with them. Water through the pipes, the coffee maker knocking to life beyond the wall, their morning moving along exactly as if nothing had happened the night before. They still had no idea I was serious. At 9:15, Cody's keyring rattled footsteps crossed to the front of the house. The door opened and pulled shut. The engine caught. I moved to the window and looked through the curtain's edge. His truck rolled down the drive with both of them aboard. Friday coffee run right on schedule. The second his truck swung around the corner and vanished. I had my phone out. They just left. Come now. The locksmith's reply landed in seconds. On my way. 10 minutes. I threw back the storage room bolt and moved up to the front window, planted myself with sightlines to the driveway and the street. 8 minutes later, a white van eased to the curb. Same man from the shop stepping out with a toolbox in one hand and a bag of hardware in the other. I had the door open before his knuckle touched it. Mr. Dunbar. He gave a nod. No small talk. Let's get this done quick. Efficient from the first move. Front door first. Old deadbolt and handle set. Pulled out clean new hardware, seated with care. Heavy-duty cylinders, high-security pin stacks. The kind of lock that laughs at a pick set and makes a battering ram a serious commitment. I stayed close, phone recording every step. Documentation. Evidence. Proof of the chain of custody, if it ever came to that. Back door next, he said, already moving. I trailed him through the house. Same sequence, no wasted motion. Out with the old hardware, in with the new. He cycled the latch and the deadbolt a half dozen times apiece, confirming the action was clean. Garage door this way. That one ran a little longer. We're getting close to the moment everything either holds together or falls apart. I had done everything right. Every document, every step, every decision made with care. But the real test was still coming. If someone you loved forced your hand like this, would you have stayed quiet and let the law handle it? Or would you have confronted them face to face? The old lock had seized up from years of humidity and heat. He had to drill out part of the cylinder before the new deadbolt would seat properly. All done. He dropped 3 fresh keys on a ring into my palm. High security deadbolts across all 3 entry points. You're the only one with a key now. That'll be $375. I peeled off the cash. No questions asked. He pocketed it, loaded his gear, and walked to his van. Good luck, he called back as he went. I watched the van clear the block, then checked my phone. 10:10. I took up a position in the living room where I'd be visible from the front window. Waited. At 10:40, Cody's truck nosed around the corner onto the street. I watched it come up slow and pull into the driveway. Both doors swung open. Cody and Trina climbed out juggling coffee cups and paper bags from wherever they'd eaten. Trina hit the front porch first, fished her key out of her purse and worked it into the lock. Nothing moved. She tried once more rattling it, pulling it free to examine it. Then the realization landed. Dad. She hammered the door with her fist. Open up. This isn't funny. I was standing 10 feet away in the living room, framed in the window looking right at her. I didn't move. Our things are in there. You can't do this. Cody appeared at her shoulder, tried his own key. Same answer from the lock. He backed off, looked at the door, looked at me through the glass. His face darkened. He pulled out his phone. I watched mine light up with his name, let every ring go, didn't pick up. His voicemail landed seconds later. I played it through the speaker, standing there in full view. Pick up the phone. You change the locks. Our stuff is in there. You open this door right now, or I'm breaking it down. Trina's fists were going again. You can't evict us. Everything we own is inside. This is illegal. Open the door, you coward. The street was starting to pay attention. Mrs. Faulkner from across the way had come out to her porch. The couple 3 doors down had stopped their walk to watch. Cody worked around the side of the house. I shadowed him from inside window to window, tracking him as he tried the back door, checked the garage, tested windows. Locked. All of it. He came back around front, breathing hard, shirt dark with sweat in the rising heat. He thinks he's won. Cody's voice cut through the door. I'm getting my tools. I'm taking this door down. He's not locking me out of my house. Trina caught his arm. Cody, all our stuff is in there. He can't just shut us out. They stood in the driveway going back and forth, Cody gesturing hard with both hands. Trina crying now, mascara tracking down through the humidity. Then Cody stopped moving, just planted himself with his hands on his hips staring at the house, at me through the window. Trina went back to the door and knocked again, but the energy had gone out of it. Her voice had gone hoarse from screaming. Cody put his phone to his ear. I couldn't make out the words, but the body language said everything angry, pointed finger jabbing toward the house. The call ended. He said something short to Trina. She nodded. They both got into the truck and it pulled away. But I'd seen Cody's face as he drove off. That wasn't retreat. That was a man going to get what he needed. Tools. Whatever it took to force his way back through those doors. I opened my phone, pulled up 911, held my thumb over the button. Not yet. I needed Cody to actually commit the act. Needed it to be undeniable. Needed witnesses standing there when it happened. So, I held my position and waited. They were back just after 11. I'd been at the living room window the whole time, phone ready. My documents fanned out on the coffee table. Cody's truck came in hot gravel scattering under the tires. Something caught the light in the truck bed. He climbed out, went around back and pulled it free. A crowbar. Heavy-duty solid steel, the kind a mechanic reaches for when something needs serious persuasion, a good 3 feet of it. He carried it like he meant business. Trina had stayed near the front door the whole time he was gone. When she spotted him coming across the yard with that bar, something shifted in her face, not fear, satisfaction. I'll show him who's actually in charge. Cody's voice was loud enough to carry across the yard and down the block. He wanted people to hear. This is our house. No lock on earth is keeping me out. Watch this. Do it. Trina's voice climbed high with it. Break it down. He can't keep us out. This is our home. I put my thumb down on 911 and kept my eyes on Cody as he squared up to the door. 911. What's your emergency? My son-in-law is attacking my front door with a crowbar. I kept my voice flat and factual. I hold a court eviction order. He was legally removed today and he's using a metal pry bar to force entry. Address is 4730 Ridgemont Drive, Halotes, Bexar County. Officers are 8 to 10 minutes out, sir. Are you in immediate danger? Is anyone hurt? I'm secure inside. The door is holding. He's working to breach it. I watched Cody line himself up for the first swing and gave the dispatcher one more piece. Tell the officers to come in through the backyard and stay quiet about it. The back gate is unlatched. If he spots a patrol car out front, he'll bolt before they can take him. I'll pass that along to the responding units. Stay on the line, sir. I will. Cody brought the crowbar up and drove it down hard. The hit shook the house metal against wood, the sound rolling down the quiet street. The door frame shuddered and held. He reset for another swing. I moved quickly through the house phone against my ear, running the checklist. Back door unlocked from inside. Back gate already open. I'd confirmed that on my perimeter walk earlier. I grabbed my backup phone from the bedroom, opened the camera, and started recording. Back in the living room, I set that phone on the mantle with a clean angle on the front door. My documents went on the coffee table, fanned out, so the writ of possession sat on top, where it couldn't be missed. Another blow landed, and the walls rang with it. Sir, officers are approximately 6 minutes out. The dispatcher stayed even. Is he still trying to get in? Yes, and he's making headway. The frame is starting to give. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Faulkner, still on her porch across the street, her own phone raised. The couple from 3 doors down hadn't moved on. A kid on a bike had rolled to a stop and was just watching. Witnesses, several of them. Cody swung again. The wood around the lock gave a crack and the frame started to spider. 4 minutes, the dispatcher told me. Trina was bouncing on her heels now, hands slapping together like she was watching a game. Yes, almost there. One more. Break it? Cody's face was red from effort and something past ordinary anger. Sweat poured off his temples. He raised the crowbar again, arms shaking with the strain. The frame was losing the argument. Another couple of solid hits, and it would go. I moved to the center of the living room and stood there on my feet, not sitting. Ready. Another impact. The wood around the deadbolt began to pull away from the frame. Then underneath Trina's shouting, underneath the ringing, the strikes had left in my ears. I caught at car doors closing careful and quiet. I checked the time on my phone. 4 minutes since the call. They were here. The officers came through the backyard, the way people who've done this before do it, no hurry, no noise. I heard the gate move footsteps across the patio, then a controlled knock at the back door. I opened it. 2 San Antonio PD officers stood there, hands loose near their sidearms, eyes already moving past me into the house. The name tag on the first one read Harwood. The second, Pruitt. Cody's crowbar connected with the front door again. The entire house shook. Officer Harwood gave me one nod, pressed a finger to her lips, and motioned me to clear the path. They moved into the living room, each taking a side with clean lines to the entrance. I pressed the writ into Harwood's hand. She looked it over in a single pass, nodded once, and locked her attention back on the front door. Another hit louder now. The frame was coming apart. Pruitt crossed to the far side of the room, both officers with hands near their holsters, ready not drawn, watching the door. I stayed at the center phone, up still recording. Documents on the coffee table between us and the entrance. One more strike. The lock mechanism wrenched partially free from the split wood. Almost. Trina's voice outside passed excitement now. One more. Cody wound up and put everything he had into it. The frame gave completely. The door swung inward, hanging wrong on damaged hinges. Cody kicked it the rest of the way through. It cracked against the wall. He stepped across the threshold, crowbar gripped in both hands, face flushed with victory. I told you, no lock would keep me out. This is... He stopped, looked at me, then his eyes went left, right, took in the officers. Every bit of color left his face at once. Trina pushed in right behind him, still cresting her wave of triumph. See, we're back, and you can't. She stopped too. San Antonio Police. Harwood's voice came into the room like a door closing. Her hand dropped to her weapon. Drop the crowbar. Put it down. Now. Cody hadn't moved an inch. That metal bar dangled from his grip. His jaw worked open. Nothing came out. Let me see both hands. Pruitt advanced her own fingers, grazing her holster. Wait. But Trina's whole tone shifted in an instant. Confused. Scared. Police. Why are the police here? This is our home. Say something, Cody. Tell them. Oh, set down the weapon. Harwood's command voice cut through the room like a blade. For one suspended beat, Cody's knuckles whitened around the crowbar. I could see the math running behind his eyes. Fight back. Bolt. Swing it. Pruitt's hand dropped to her sidearm fingers, closing around the grip. That small, deliberate movement snapped whatever reckless idea was taking shape in Cody's head. The crowbar hit my hardwood floor with a crack that bounced off every wall. Silence rushed in behind it. Cody lifted his arms, slow and careful. The color had drained from his face entirely, his mouth working open and shut without producing a single word. This is all a misunderstanding. Trina retreated toward the wall, palms up, arms waving in frantic circles. This is my father's place. We're residents here. We, ma'am, moved to the side. Pruitt angled toward her weapon hand, still ready. Stand over there. Wall. Harwood closed the distance to Cody and unclipped the cuffs from her belt. "Sir, face away from me. Hands back." Cody complied like a man running on autopilot. His gaze drifted across the room and locked onto mine. Stayed there. What was he searching for? A reprieve, some signal I'd step in. I gave him neither. Harwood drew his arms back and secured the cuffs one wrist, then the other. They snapped shut, steel against skin. That sound, those two clean clicks, moved through the whole house like a current. Through 3 years of being pushed into the margins of my own life, 3 years of cleaning up after their parties, swallowing their insults, lying awake at night, and asking myself whether my own daughter would ever stop treating me like furniture she'd inherited. Those clicks were the best thing I'd heard in 3 years. "You have the right to remain silent," Harwood said. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Trina dissolved into tears, full-on sobbing this time, not the careful performance I'd grown used to. "Dad, you have to fix this. Tell them they've got it wrong." I held her gaze. My daughter, 38 years old, standing in the middle of my living room, mascara, tracking black lines down her cheeks. The doorframe her husband had demolished with a crowbar framing her from behind. "You were evicted," I told her, calm, flat. 30 days' notice was delivered. The judge's ruling came down 3 days ago. New locks went on this morning. You have zero legal claim to this property, though your belongings can be retrieved with an officer present once a time is arranged. That's how it works. I glanced at Harwood. "Officer, that's the procedure, isn't it?" "It is." She wrapped up reading Cody his rights. "There are proper channels for recovering possessions after an eviction order. A crowbar through the front door isn't one of them." Pruitt had Trina pinned against the wall, running a check for weapons, requesting ID. Harwood steered Cody toward the ruined entrance, toward the sidewalk full of onlookers, toward the cruiser that had glided up to the curb unnoticed, while Cody was busy with his assault. When they drew level with me, Cody leaned close, barely audible. "You set this whole thing up." My eyes met his. I said nothing at all. Let that quiet do the work. Harwood walked him out into the Texas afternoon sun. The cuffs caught the light. Every neighbor within sight range had a phone raised. Mrs. Faulkner, the couple from down the block, the kid straddling his bicycle, all of them watching as Cody made that walk to the cruiser. Trina came out behind him a minute later, alongside Officer Pruitt. No cuffs on her wrists, but she wasn't going anywhere freely either. I stood in my living room in my house, and watched every bit of it. Harwood had recited the Miranda warning, and I knew those words the way anyone who'd watched enough crime television knows them. But there's a difference between hearing them on a screen and hearing them delivered in your own home, aimed at your own son-in-law, 5 feet from a door he'd just caved in with a pry bar. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. The fury that had been blazing in Cody's face minutes ago had gone cold and pale, replaced by something closer to shock. The crowbar was still there between us on the floor, evidence instrument measure of exactly how far he'd been prepared to go. He listed slightly, like the ground had shifted under him. "Arrested." Trina's pitch rose until her voice cracked. "This is my father's house. We live here. Say it, Dad. Tell them we're supposed to be here. Tell them." I crossed to the coffee table and picked up the folder I'd spent weeks building, handed it straight to Harwood without comment. She worked through it page by page, unhurried. Property deed my name, no one else's. Writ of possession, signed by the Bezar County judge. Sheriff's service record confirming legal notice had been delivered. A photo log of the destruction they had left behind. Cigarette burns in the surface's fixtures, ripped loose holes punched through walls. My personal journal, dated entries covering every party, every threat, every escalation, plus screenshots of texts in which Cody had threatened me, word for word. Harwood's face stayed unreadable, but there was a small nod, the nod of someone who's seen a lot of disorganized complaints and recognizes when someone came prepared. "Pruitt document everything in here," she told her partner. Pruitt moved through the space like she'd done it 100 times. The camera strobe lit up the shattered doorframe, every place where the wood had given way under repeated force. The crowbar untouched where it had fallen, the breach point where the pry bar had chewed through the metal, the lock assembly pulled half out of the housing. Every frame of footage a permanent record official, now part of the case. "Mr. Dunbar, I'm going to be straightforward with you." Harwood set down my folder and looked at me directly. unlawful entry into an occupied home while armed deliberate destruction of property assault with a deadly weapon. None of this is minor. She pivoted back to Cody, her tone going flat and formal. Sir, you are under arrest for burglary of a habitation. That's a second-degree felony in Texas. Criminal mischief causing approximately $920 in damages and assault with a deadly weapon. Texas Penal Code classifies that crowbar as a deadly weapon the moment you used it to force entry with the intent to intimidate or cause harm. Cody's mouth opened and closed 3 times. What came out instead of words was a raw, strangled noise. This is insane. His voice finally clawed its way back, though it came out hoarse. This is my house. We have every right to be here. He's doing this out of spite. This is a family matter. Harwood didn't flinch. Sir, the paperwork in that folder says otherwise. Mr. Dunbar holds the sole deed to this property. That eviction was issued by a court and lawfully carried out. You are not a legal occupant. Watch your head. Her palm settled on top of Cody's head and guided him through the frame he'd just wrecked getting in. Trina caught my arm with both hands, fingernails pressing in. Dad, you need to stop this right now. That's my husband. We're your family. One disagreement blew up, that's all this is. You don't tear a family apart over one bad night. I looked down at where her hands were gripping me, looked at her face streaked in swollen desperation written into every line. And for a second I could see her at 6 years old, little fingers wrapped around mine at a crosswalk. Then I saw the woman who'd stood right here and urged her husband on while he demolished my door. I didn't move away. I just waited still and quiet until her grip loosened on its own. He's the one who put himself in cuffs the second he picked up that crowbar and came through my door. My voice carried the same weight it had carried on every fire scene where the call had already been made and there was no going back. The moment he broke that law, the moment he wrecked my property and made me feel unsafe in my own home, it left the family column entirely. Gather what's yours and go, Trina, ma'am. Officer Pruitt positioned herself between us, composed and immovable. You were served a lawful eviction notice 30 days ago. You didn't show at the hearing. You hold no lease, no agreement, nothing that grants you standing here. This address is no longer yours. Right now, you are trespassing. But all our stuff, everything we have is still inside. You have a 2-hour window to remove personal items under my watch, Pruitt said. Clothes, toiletries, personal effects, only nothing that's Mr. Dunbar's property. After that, you leave for good and give us a forwarding address for anything that remains. Refuse and I place you under arrest for criminal trespass. Trina folded. Not the practiced, calculated crying I'd witnessed for years. This was different. This was the wall finally coming down, reality pushing through everything she'd told herself to keep it at bay. Out front, the whole block had turned out. Mrs. Faulkner had both hands pressed to her mouth on her porch. The couple from 3 houses down stood frozen mid-walk. The kid on his bicycle held his phone steady recording. Curtains shifted in windows up and down the street as Cody was brought out in handcuffs, shirt torn at the shoulder, seam, sweat sheening his face, arms locked behind him. More than a few neighbors were already filming, locking this moment in place, making it something that couldn't be walked back or quietly forgotten. As Harwood reached for the cruiser door, Cody turned his head and found my face through the window. What I read in that look was layered fury, stunned disbelief, and underneath it the flicker of a man who still couldn't accept this was really happening. "Trina!" he called out as the door swung open, his voice stretching across the yard, pitched high and raw and desperate. "Call my brother. Get me out of here. This is insane. He can't treat us this way. This is our home." Still claiming ownership, still positioning himself as the wronged party, still refusing to accept that every bit of this was his own doing. Harwood's hand steadied his head as she lowered him into the back seat. The door shut with a solid thunk that rang out in the midday heat. I walked the house with Harwood while Pruitt stayed back in the living room with Trina. We went room to room, building a record of what they'd left behind. Gouge marks on the walls where furniture had been dragged without care, a cabinet hinge in the kitchen bent and dangling, cigarette burns pressed into the carpet, spot after spot never touched, a fist-sized hole in the drywall near the guest bedroom, where Cody had put his hand through it during some explosion of temper, water stains on the ceiling from a leak they'd simply ignored. "You'll want copies of all of this for your insurance claim and for court," Harwood said, framing each item in her camera. "The district attorney will be reaching out within a week regarding the charges. Given the documentation you've brought, the case is extremely strong, solid prosecution. How long does he stay locked up bail hearing in 2 or 3 days? With felony charges and a weapon in play, I'd put bail at 15,000, maybe 20. She tilted her head toward the living room, where Trina's sobbing was carrying through the walls. Think she can pull that together? I doubt it. I ran through what I knew of their finances, the same situation that had landed them in my house to begin with. No savings to speak of. His people aren't in any position to help either. Harwood nodded like she'd heard that story before. She had. Then he sits in Bezar County Jail until there's a trial or a deal. Could be weeks, could stretch to months, depending on the docket and whether he's willing to take a plea. She handed over her card. Official San Antonio Police Department seal on heavy stock. Keep your documentation tight and organized. Photograph anything else that turns up. The protective order request will likely go through. That's routine for a case like this. He won't be permitted within 500 feet of you or this property. Violate it once and he's back behind bars. No bail that time. Officer, thank you. Mr. Dunbar, you handled this correctly. You worked within the system. You built your case. You let the law do what it's designed to do, instead of taking things into your own hands. She held my eyes for a moment. That's exactly what makes this stick. She walked to her cruiser radio, going on her shoulder, the city already calling her somewhere else. I stood in my doorway back under my control, and watched Trina tearing through the rooms, cramming belongings into garbage bags, the same black plastic bags they'd used to pack up my things weeks before. She worked like the place was on fire, clothes, shoes, toiletries scooped up and stuffed in, without any system or care. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Couldn't bring herself to look at me. Shame or fury, I didn't know. Didn't much care. Officer Pruitt stayed close, watching the clock, making sure Trina didn't walk out with anything that wasn't hers, keeping the professional buffer the situation required. Hour and 45 minutes left. Ma'am, I'd focus on what you need most. Anything left behind can be arranged for later. I eased the door closed and let her finish without my presence hovering over the whole scene. Through the window, I watched the patrol car move off down the street with Cody in the back seat, head bowed, hands locked behind him. It turned the corner, and he was gone. The same garbage bags that had held my things now held theirs. That symmetry didn't escape me. The days following Cody's arrest had their own momentum, each one returning something to me. A contractor showed up Monday morning, carrying wood samples and hardware catalogs. We stood together in the entryway, studying the wrecked frame, talking through what made sense. I went with a reinforced steel frame, a commercial-grade deadbolt fitted with anti-drill plates, a solid core door that wouldn't yield to anything short of heavy equipment. The installer surveyed the crowbar damage and gave an approving nod at every choice I'd made. "This will hold," he said. "Whatever went on here won't happen again." It took 2 days. I watched them pull out every fragment of the old frame, every ruined piece fit the new materials in, with care test, the locks again, and set 3 keys in my hand on a fresh ring. The day after the new door was in place, a security company van rolled up. 2 technicians spent 6 hours putting cameras on every entrance and corner that had any blind spot risk. Motion sensors on the windows, glass break detectors, a monitored alarm tied to a control panel in my bedroom, and a second one near the front door. They walked me through the phone app that pulled up live feeds from anywhere I happened to be. You'll get an immediate alert the second anything triggers. The lead technician told me, dispatch gets notified automatically if the alarm fires and you don't clear it within 60 seconds. Average response time out here runs about 8 minutes. I thanked them and armed the system the moment their van left the curb. Nobody would catch me off guard again. Not family, not a stranger, not anyone. Nadine called on Wednesday, 3 days after the arrest. "Cody's been formally charged," she said. In that measured matter-of-fact tone attorneys settle into when the news is significant. Burglary of a habitation that's a second-degree felony. Criminal mischief over $750. Assault with a deadly weapon. The prosecutor is treating this as a priority Virgil. What does that mean for bail? It was set at $15,000 at yesterday's hearing. He'd need to post $1,500 cash to a bondsman to walk out. Papers rustled on her end. He's still in Bezar County Jail. Trina tried to round up the money, worked through his brother, his friends, whoever she could reach. Nobody came through. I sat at my kitchen table and let that settle over me. Cody in a cell, unable to post out, facing real consequences in a concrete block room rather than my master bedroom. How long does he stay until trial, or until he takes a deal? I heard from the prosecutor's office just yesterday. They want a resolution without dragging this to court. They're putting a deal on the table. Plead guilty to reduced charges, 3 years, supervised probation, mandatory anger, management counseling, and a 500-foot protective order. The other road is a jury trial carrying a potential 2 to 10-year prison, sentence on the burglary charge alone. What do you think he'll do? Take the deal. Nadine said no hesitation at all. His public defender will lay it out plainly. Going to trial is not a gamble worth taking. The evidence is airtight. The footage you recorded, officer testimony, documented damage, multiple witnesses on the scene. No jury in Bazar County is going to take his side. My read is, he signs the plea agreement within 2 weeks, and the protective order comes with it as part of his probation terms. He's barred from coming within 500 feet of you or this address. No direct contact, no indirect contact. He crosses that line a single time. He goes straight back to jail, and the original felony charges come back in full. He serves every bit of the sentence. Nadine, I can't thank you enough for what you've done here. You did the hard work, Virgil. You held your position when most people would have buckled and walked away. That week, I took the house back one room at a time, started in the master bedroom, pulled every piece of bedding they'd slept on, every sheet, every pillowcase. The mattress and box spring went to the dump. There was no version of me sleeping on what they'd used for 3 years. I got a new set, new pillows, new comforter, and charcoal gray instead of the beige they had chosen. I went through the closet piece by piece, turned up clothes they'd left, Cody's work shirts, Trina's dresses, bagged all of it, and dropped it at Goodwill. Somebody else could sort through their remnants. Scoured the bathroom until the grout was white again. New shower curtain, new bath mat, new towels. My own things back on the hooks, my razor, my soap, my space again. On to the kitchen, found their dishes tangled up with mine, their cheap cookware crowding my shelves. Sorted through everything, kept what was mine, donated what was theirs. Arranged the cabinets the way I'd always had them. The living room took the most effort. They'd rearranged everything, shoved my reading chair to a corner, filled the center of the room with their oversized sofa and enormous television. I hired 2 college students for $60 to help me move everything back. My chair went back to its place by the window. My bookshelf returned to the wall where it belonged. Their furniture hit the curb with a free sign, attached, gone inside 3 hours. I repainted where there were scuffs and scratches, filled in the holes, swapped out broken fixtures. Fixed the cabinet hinge, shampooed the carpets myself, working the machine over the cigarette burns until they were barely there. Every repair, deliberate, methodical, stripping away what they'd left, putting the house back in order. On the 10th day, my phone buzzed. Dad, I'm sorry about everything. I know things got out of hand. Can we talk? Can I come home? I miss you. I read it twice, then a third time, and sat with the wording. Things got out of hand. Passive construction, no real ownership. Not, I'm sorry for how we treated you. Not, I'm sorry we made your own home feel unsafe. Just a soft, shapeless acknowledgement that something had somehow occurred. Can I come home? Still calling it home. Still operating from the belief that she had a claim here. The pattern was in plain sight now. The angling, the soft peddling of what actually happened, the assumption that being family meant the door was always open no matter what had been done. I typed back with a steady hand. No, find your own path. Read it once, sent it, erased the whole thread, blocked her number. Some bridges are better left in ash. Nadine called again on August 28th, 2 weeks after the arrest. It's done, she said. Cody signed the plea agreement this morning. Guilty to amended charges. Burglary knocked down to criminal trespass. Still a felony, but lighter on sentencing. Criminal mischief stands. Assault charge dropped as part of the deal. 3 years supervised probation standard terms. Monthly check-ins. Anger management classes. 0 contact with you. Protective order firmly in place. When does he get out? Today. This afternoon. But Virgil, he cannot come anywhere near you. That protective order has no give in it. 500 feet minimum distance. He shows up at your address, rolls past your block, tries to reach you by any means whatsoever. He goes straight back behind bars and faces the original charges all over again. His probation officer made sure that message landed. What about Trina? She's not named in the order, but she's smart enough to stay away. She'd be trespassing the instant she stepped onto your property. I've sent her a formal letter making clear that any attempt to enter your home ends in immediate arrest. I thanked Nadine, set the phone down, and sat in my reclaimed kitchen, letting it all settle. Cody was out, but on a short leash. Trina had nowhere to go, and I was finally lawfully permanently protected. Saturday arrived under open skies, temperatures already pressing toward 90 degrees by 8 in the morning. I sat at my kitchen table, my table in my house, in my own space with a cup of coffee steaming in front of me. The quiet was something I hadn't known in years. Such silence, no music hammering through the walls before sunrise. No voices climbing over each other about nothing. No footsteps that had no business being there. No charge in the air like the stillness before a bad storm. Just the low hum of the air conditioning, holding the heat outside, where it belonged. The tick of the clock Delia had picked up at an estate sale 20 years ago. Somewhere down the block, a neighbor running a lawnmower, plain everyday sounds beautiful in their normalcy. My phone vibrated on the table. Text from Eddie Grantham, an old colleague from Station 14. Virgil, word got around about what went down with your daughter and her husband. Standing your ground like that takes real courage, especially when it's family. Throwing a barbecue at my place this afternoon, around 3 if you want to come through. Nothing big, just burgers and good company. Be good to see you, brother. Word moved fast in the fire service, even among the retired crowd. But Eddie's message wasn't curiosity or sympathy. I could hear his voice behind every word. Respect, brotherhood, an open door back into everyday life. The kind of friendship where years can go quiet and you just pick up again without missing a step, I wrote back. I'll be there. Thanks, Eddie. Need me to bring anything? His answer came right back. Just yourself. See you at 3. I set the phone on the table and took in the kitchen around me. New hardware catching the light on the door. The security camera app showing calm, undisturbed views of my property. Coffee in hand. Morning sun cutting through clean windows. 2 hours before the barbecue. Enough time for a second cup. Enough time to read the paper without anyone interrupting. Time to simply sit inside the peace I had fought to get back. Step by step, filing by filing, one carefully made decision at a time. I walked to the window and looked out over the yard. The grass was getting long. I'd take care of it tomorrow. The hedges would want trimming sometime next week. There was a board in the back fence that needed swapping out. Small things, routine upkeep. The kind of ordinary problems that had nothing to do with attorneys or court dates or handcuffs or a daughter choosing her husband's rage over her father. Just life, regular life, mine to shape, however I saw fit. The coffee was strong and hot, exactly the way I wanted it. The air conditioning held steady at 72 degrees. The house carried the quiet it was supposed to live in, settled secure. I let my mind run back over the road that had brought me to this kitchen to this morning. The moment I decided to stop absorbing what was being done to me and start doing something about it. The first visit to an attorney, the court filing, the months of careful documentation, the waiting, the 911 call, the click of those handcuffs snapping shut, every step connected to the one before it, every choice closing the gap between where I was and where I needed to be. Now here I stood on a Saturday morning, with nothing heavier on my plate than whether to pour a second cup. For the first time in 3 years, I was home. Really, truly home. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you, truly. This wasn't an easy story to carry, and it isn't an easy one to tell. Looking back, what strikes me most isn't the arrest or the court order, or even that Saturday morning coffee in a quiet house. It's how long I waited before I did anything. 3 years of shrinking, 3 years of telling myself it would work itself out. I believe God was patient with me during that time, but I also think He was waiting for me to stop hoping things would change and start making them change. The cost was real. A daughter I may never fully have back. A peace that had to be won the hard way. But the lesson was worth every bit of it. Here is what this whole experience taught me if it's worth anything to you. Document everything. The moment something feels wrong in your own home, start writing it down, dates, words, damage. Paper beats memory every time. Family feeling entitled to your property is still entitlement. Love doesn't require you to hand over what you built. If you wait for people to do the right thing on their own, you may wait forever. A quiet legal process beats a loud argument 9 times out of 10. And if someone tells you that standing your ground against family makes you the villain, let them. You know what it cost you to get there. This has been a dad's revenge story, and if it connected with something you've been carrying, I hope it helped. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below. I read them, and your thoughts on this family revenge story matter to me. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe to Dad's Revenge. I'll be right here. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself.